Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Slay to Success Talk Show. My name is Rochelle Slay or Slay Queen Hemingway, CEO and founder of Slay to Success. And y'all, we have a SLAYMAZING guest with us tonight. So if you are here for your first time, buckle up, okay? Because we're about to have a conversation that you may not have heard as in depth as we're going to have it today. So as the CEO founder of Slay to Success, I am a speaker, author, image consultant, personal brand expert, if you will, and a proud United States Air Force veteran of 30 years. And so in this show, we start with the word slay. All right. Slay means to kill it, to dominate it, and to nail it, to be on point, to impress greatly, and to dream big and work hard until you own it. It is also an acronym that stands for Universal Life and Leadership Philosophies that really resonate with me, and hopefully they resonate with you too. And that is stay ready to be ready, lead out loud, a sense of community, and you are built to last. So as you come on into the show, please let us know where you're streaming in from. Tell us your name, kind of what you're doing, because you have decided to spend your Sunday evening with us, which here in the DC area, DMV area, it is snowing. Okay. There's a lot of cold weather conditions outside right now. So hopefully you're staying safe and warm. On this show, we will be talking through some leadership, wellness, mindset, personal branding, business acumen, so that way you can go out and slay whatever it is that you're doing. And I bring in men and women onto this show who are using the slay philosophies to make a positive impact in this world. And y'all, I be searching high and I'll be searching low. And when I find someone that is most fitting for the show, I ask them to come on to the show. If they say yes, I'm like, yes, here we go. We can be here on this show. So let me introduce you all to our guest for tonight. Her name is Doreen Agbabiaka, and she is a presence and influence strategist, leadership trainer, speaker, and the founder of Graceful and Poised. With over a decade of experience in business image management, diplomatic protocol, personal branding, and leadership development, she brings a unique international perspective, seamlessly blending time honored protocol with modern leadership principles. Her work blends emotional intelligence, business protocol, diplomacy, and behavioral science to help people show up and powerfully so they engage, connect, and build trust with confidence. She has the privilege of working with leaders and professionals worldwide through through strategic communication, business protocol, and emotional intelligence. Her goal is to empower individuals and teams to earn, lead, and win in a diverse, evolving business world. So please give a warm welcome to my guest, Doreen. How are you? What's going on, Queen?
Hi.
Hi.
So happy to be here today.
I am so happy for you being here as well. I'm super excited because the words that are described in your bio are almost identical to the words that I'm using. So I was like, we are in this industry, in this career, if you will, and it's so good to talk to someone who understands what I am talking to with, people who I'm speaking to or people who I am partnered with. So I am excited about our conversation. So for us to get the conversation started, Doreen, can you please share with the audience a little bit about yourself? You can start from wherever you would like, and then we'll just roll on in.
Okay. Well, firstly, I wanted to say thank you, Rochelle, for having me here. I'm very excited to be here and, engage with everyone. And like you said, it's always a pleasure. It's always exciting when you get together with people of like minds,
Mhm.
to talk about things that you are passionate about. And
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about the things that I talk about.
Mhm.
So, well, let me talk a little bit about myself. Like Michelle has introduced me. My name is Doreen Agbabiaka, and I am the founder of Graceful and Poised. Um, where do I start? I would I say I have been doing this for, like you said, over a decade, and it started out with, I would say, I was my first client because I got into this really to help myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
In a way. So I was literally my first client, practicing all the skills and all the things that I teach other people today. As an immigrant who came here at the age of 17 by myself, I had to really learn um, how to adapt very quickly. And as
Mm,
you can see, I had to learn the invisible rules of the new society, the society I found myself. Um, of course, it really helped that I lived in 3 countries, and I traveled a lot. So, but coming here, yeah, I had to really adapt. And I remember when I started, like, my, should I say, first serious big adult job.
uh-huh.
um, yeah, working for Disney. I had a mentor who kind of gave me some feedback, and it had to do with, like, body language. And I mean, I thought of myself as a pretty confident person,
Yeah.
but he gave me some feedback, and I thought, and that stayed with me. And I thought, wow. So, right, like, people are able to tell. I mean, you know it in some way, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's a different thing when you become very intentional about it, right?
Yes.
Understanding that people are able to tell certain things about you, even if it might not be what you were trying to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
sometimes there's that gap, or there's that disconnect between what you are trying to say and um what people receive, or
Mm-hmm.
what people interpret in that sense. So that took me down, should I call it, the rabbit hole of it really was a rabbit hole. I began to, I was very curious, and wow, like, okay, so, and I began to be a lot more intentional, and observe, my surroundings, and observe people who I thought of as great leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of try to figure out, what makes them different, right? What kind of
Mm-hmm.
signals are they sending that's making them different? And so I just began to practice it on myself, and learn as much as I could. And I've always been should I say, a student of human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Very fascinated by it, why we do things, what makes people do the things they do.
Agreed.
So that also kind of contributed, to my interest. And and then something very interesting began to happen. And as I started practicing these things and learning, I really began to see the shift, like, the response,
Mm-hmm.
um and the way people responded. And it really boosted my confidence. It
Yeah.
gave me a lot of opportunities. And I was like, wow, this is really something. I feel like I have really stumbled onto something.
Yeah.
um, and
Well,
so
I have a question before you go on. Um, can you share what your mentor told you? So, like, what was the feedback they gave you? As you said it was your body language. Did you understand the specifics to what he was sharing with you? And if you could tell us what that is, because I think that would be helpful for anyone who may not know what we're really talking about. Like you talk about body language, and it's like maybe some nonverbal cues and so forth.
mm,
So what was he saying?
Well, it was basically I had a lot of closed, should I say, closed body language, right? So
Mhm.
I was contracting inwards, when
Mhm.
and like maybe even the way I was dressing as well. I was unconsciously using clothing as some kind of shield, maybe
Mm.
between me and other people. And in general, my body language was, how they say, have space between your ears and your
Your shoulders.
shoulders,
Yep.
and space between your arms and your torso. So
Mhm.
confident people, they take up space. They
Yep.
I mean, not in an obnoxious way, but
Right.
confident people take up space. So when you contract inwards, it gives a signal of not being so confident, or approachable, or whatever it may seem, even if that's not what you actually mean.
Yeah.
So that made me start looking at as clothing and image as more of a tool,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
A tool to communicate intentionally. I mean, we're
Yes.
always we're always communicating anyway. So, but it's like, are you doing it intentionally to communicate what you want to communicate?
Yeah.
So I started learning, um, I started learning those, and at first it was like, the external stuff, because there have been studies done that when you embody like power, when you have powerful body language, like it actually affects the way
Mhm.
you see yourself and the way others see you, and so it boosts your confidence, you know
Absolutely.
yeah. So in the beginning, I mean, I most of it was external,
Yeah.
and then I started getting deeper into it. I eventually left the corporate space and started my own image consulting firm. And I did that, just in the beginning, just out of passion, and just
Yeah.
um went out there. And I obviously I ended up venturing into several other entrepreneurial ventures along the
Yeah.
way. But something always brought me back, and something always brought me back. And that's when I thought, okay, after a while, I thought, that there's more to this. So I went on to develop myself, and that's how I got into the diplomatic space. I became a protocol officer. And so right now, the work that I do is really bringing all that together,
Yes.
from
Yep.
my corporate experience, my experience, with image consulting, my experience, in the diplomatic space, um, behavioral science, and all that, to really create. I believe anything can be learned, right?
Yes.
Obviously,
Agreed.
some people have maybe more innate talent, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But nobody was like born a leader. No, I mean, I don't know any. There are not that many people that I know that are like born, you know, great leaders or carries. So people, you can learn. I believe you can learn all these skills. You can learn to be charismatic. You can learn the body language, the signals, the mindset.
Mhm.
Um, Power, for example, power is a skill, right? So
It is.
power is the skill of getting things done.
Mhm.
You can learn that,
Mhm.
right? So I believe all these skills, human skills, which are so very important, um, so very important, but most times people don't think about so much, or
Yeah.
and people, we're communicating anyway, but people are not doing it intentionally,
Yeah.
for their benefit. So the work I do right now is I create systems that make these skills learnable and repeatable.
Yes.
to get certain results.
Yeah. You know, you're speaking to what I share and speak to every single day. And what I appreciate is the skills being put all together, right? Like all the things that you have learned over time and to build systems because sometimes it can be overwhelming,
Yeah.
right? To think
Yeah.
about how do I intentionally show up?
Mhm.
Okay. Like I got to think about my appearance. I got to think about my body language. I got to think about my communication. I got to think about what I'm doing digitally, like online, you know, like all these different things. But once you have a system and then you create habits, because I
Mhm.
believe in creating good habits to
Yeah.
get the results that you are looking for. So when you say repeatable, it becomes not only repeatable, but it becomes sustainable.
Yes.
Because a lot of times people will, you know, try it out for, you know, maybe a couple of weeks or so and like, this is not working. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, because it has to be fine tuned and everyone is different. Like everyone has a different style, the
Yeah.
way that they lead, the way that
Mhm.
they dress, the way
Mhm.
that they communicate, but finding your authentic self in that because you can take on other people's mannerisms or other people's voices and it still won't be you. So, you know, coming to the foundation, this is core work. This is like inner core work. And when you said, hey, you started out externally, but then when you went inward, you really start to see about self-development. And so
Mhm.
self-development is a lifelong journey. I really
Mhm.
think that, you
Yes,
know, you can be on
absolutely.
and on and on. Now, Glenroy is on Facebook. So hey Glenroy, how you doing? Good evening from Vegas. So he's on Facebook. We can't see the
Hi.
comment screen but I can see him on my phone. So he says, your projection of your confidence in the way you carry yourself is important. It can draw people to you, and those who are weak minded, it intimidates them.
Mm.
Charisma is a tool that can be utilized to garner the attention in an organization. It is important for changing culture in organizations and developing a professional following, which I absolutely agree with him
Mhm.
because so what are your thoughts when you share with someone, hey, I'm an image consultant, right? Or I manage image or I do personal brand, whatever, you know, in our space. What kind of response do you normally get from that?
Hmm. A lot of times I would say people just want to know more.
Yeah,
Like, okay, tell me more. Or,
yeah,
like the way I introduce myself differs depending on
that's right.
obviously who I'm speaking to or
Yeah,
where I am.
yeah,
But like for instance, I have found like people come to me, right? Because for different reasons.
yeah,
I want to get a promotion. It always has like some goal or whatever they're trying to attain. I want to get a promotion. I want to I don't know, get more clients. I want
yeah.
to whatever it is, whatever that goal is.
Mhm.
But I find that at the end of the day, um, they say these certain things. So I want to be more respected. I want to get more recognition, right, for my work. And um I so sometimes you kind of have to dig a little deeper to see it. But overall, at the end of the day, I realized that there was one common thread, and that is that people want to reduce the resistance, right,
Mhm.
between them and whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. So they want to be able to reduce relate better, reduce resistance. It might be with their boss or with their clients or with different stakeholders, um, so that they can build that trust, they can build
Yeah,
that connection, they can build that influence that decreases the, should I say, the distance between them and the goals that they're trying to
mhm.
achieve. So if we are to put it in a broader sense, I could say I generally, I help people reduce resistance
Yes.
so that they can go on to build trust, influence, and connection with the stakeholders,
Yeah.
um, or important people in their lives in
Yeah.
whichever way. So it really, sometimes, you get, what is that? Or sometimes it's like, oh, tell me a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or, um, so generally it's always something that I find myself fine tuning and to help people understand better. But
Yeah.
it definitely always sparks a larger conversation.
It always does. It's
It
never
always
just the
does.
one thing that they're pursuing. Because when you find out, I know working with the clients that I have,
Mhm.
it's much more than just the one thing.
Yeah.
It's like overall, right? Like I want to improve myself overall. And
Mm.
when you talk about resistance, I refer to as friction.
Yeah.
There's
Friction.
friction
Hmm.
that is happening where you may be in a meeting or you may be in your supervisor or boss's office and they call you in and you can feel this energy, that is off. And
Mm.
it's because maybe you're speaking two different languages or you're not having a quite understanding of where the other person is coming from and the responses going back are not really uh getting the results that they're looking for. And I discovered over my time in the military that those are the nuances. These are the smallest things that can make the biggest impact.
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
know
It could even be as soon as you enter that door, you haven't even said anything. You've
is that
already
a
created
word?
friction. You've already created resistance, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, and anything that is between you communicating the way you want to communicate,
Yep,
um, that is friction, right? That
it
is that
is.
is resistance. If you get into a place and immediately they look at you and it's not the frame you want them to look at you from,
Yeah,
that is already a resistance, a friction that you have to overcome.
you do.
You know
You know,
so
and it has to be a when you talk about the perception of what others see, it has to be what you want them to see, like that alignment. So I talk about alignment a lot because i
absolutely.
i think that is something that sometimes people forget about the alignment.
Mm,
Is it you? Like, is this the true you? Like showing your true you initially. And it may not be fitting for the environment for where you're going into, especially if you're starting out. And that's already a signal to yourself, right? It's like, making a decision of whether or not that's where you want to be. And sometimes you don't have that option because you're already there and you may
mm,
be going to that next level. And so even the next level, right? And I know we could talk through that, leadership is hard. It's risky. There's high stakes when you start to lead more people, more resources. You get into different communities and talking to different people.
mm.
And you can really offend someone
Yeah,
by it don't have to be much, right? It don't have to be much. But having that understanding that you're going to the next level and where you were at before that next whatever it is, there's things that have to be adjusted. And I'm not saying that
absolutely.
it's not is you have to change you, but you do need to. And I love when he said, awareness, like figuring out who is around you, where you're going, and really asking yourselves, questions about being strategic. I'm very much a strategic mindset, like where am I trying to go in this particular space?
Mm,
Like, how do I need to show up?
mm.
What do I need to communicate? What do I need to say? It all matters. That's when I say like image management, it all matters because it can get you to
Absolutely.
places. And so we got
Absolutely.
two guests here with us. Melanie, how you doing, Queen? Holding it down on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being with us live. And it's so good to see you virtually. Um, And then we have Victoria, one of my sister queens here. She says, I'm excited that I'm catching this live. So many great nuggets of wisdom. Thank you so much, Queen, for being here. Both of you are here live on LinkedIn. We've got a couple of people here on Facebook. I have one of my supervisors, one of my favorite supervisors, also on Facebook. Her name is Emily Hunt Brown. She is, in fact, the reason why I went to 30 years of service. So
Oh,
she was my
wow.
inspiration because she also did that too. So,
Oh,
anywho, she's on the line. She's on Facebook too. And then, oh, okay. Glenroy loves to give comments, but sometimes they don't show up for us. So he's on Facebook. He says, my science is making such a change in an organization that only you know how to effectively sustain. This makes you a pillar within the organization. Make them need you. You may have subordinates that you train and teach the processes to, but those results that stand out will take in your charisma and interpersonal energy. Once you establish yourself as a pillar through detailed means, you now become an asset that the organization will promote as a bridge to building relationships with other organizations. This builds your network and potential to move into higher paying positions.
there's a lot there.
Glenroy will give us a lot to be chewing on. Okay, he be laying it in there. Okay, I just like, okay, Glenroy, we got you.
There's a lot there.
Well, let's just take a little bit from what he said. So, how about your thoughts on making them need you? You know, because that was one of the comments that he um, said when it comes to knowing how to effectively sustain.
Okay, right. So I would say in my trainings and my teachings and stuff, I teach people like to like these four there are like four zones, right?
Yeah.
That people in organizations kind of go through.
Yeah.
The first zone is, you do the work, right? You're
Yeah.
credible, you have the skills, you do good work.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
A lot of people just stay here.
Yeah.
They
Which is
just
fine.
they just I guess, it's fine. You just do good work.
Mm-hmm.
The next level is you start learning how to translate your work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I a lot of people that I work with, I would say very smart people with
Mm-hmm.
above average IQs, right?
That's
And
right.
the problem sometimes with very smart people is they have this misconception that, I mean, this should be obvious, right? Like
Yeah.
this should speak for itself.
Speak for
People
yourself. I
should
got the credentials.
see
I
it.
got the letters.
Yeah,
I got the degrees.
people
Okay.
should see
So
it. It's great work.
great
People
work.
should be able to figure it out and recognize it. But that's not how the world works in reality. That's
Mm-hmm.
not how organizations work. Organizations, they sustain themselves. It's based on trust. It's based on um emotions. It's based on risk, right? um so when you do work, you have to be able to translate that work
Yeah.
into something that people understand. And see, this is a mistake. A lot of people just think, if I do something that's logical or that makes sense, then
Yeah.
it should translate.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that, because yes, organizations business is all it's all about, yeah, the profit, the KPIs, the whatever, but at the core of it, it's still people, right? And people have emotions. So at the other end of it, people are thinking, okay, is this safe, right? You talked about alignment. One of the things I tell people a lot, and this thing keeps people like in middle management, they just keep spinning. People don't understand alignment. You have to align yourself with what's important to other
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
No matter how great your ideas are, no matter how brilliant you are, if what you're doing does not matter to other people, it's or even the organization at
At large.
large. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to be able to align yourself. There's that alignment because people are thinking, okay, is this going to be risky, right? Who's
Mm-hmm.
going to bear the risk
Yeah,
if this doesn't work out? Does this align with my own agenda? Everybody now,
exactly.
you remember everybody has their own agendas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does this align with my agenda? Does this make me look good, right? Is this a safe thing? So there's so many things behind the scenes that people that go into decisions besides just this is a good idea or this makes sense or this is good work, right? If somebody
Mm-hmm.
refers to you and the only thing they can say about you is he does great work,
Yeah.
then that's not good enough,
No.
right? They can't specifically say, hey, he reduces this risk or he makes this easy so that we can do this or this or this.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's a third then you go through when you start translating your work, people start really seeing the value, all those decisions are made and you're able to address those risks and concerns, and there's alignment and there's all those things, and people then the third stage is people being able to carry your ideas, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you need people to be able to speak for you in rooms where you are not there, and they need to be able to state clearly what kind of value you are bringing, right? What
Yes.
kind of risk you're reducing, what kind of so then you start realizing, okay, I have some influence here, right? I'm
Yeah.
saying things and people are carrying those things and taking them to other rooms and other spaces, and talking about my ideas in places where I'm not present.
Yeah.
So that's the third stage where it starts to really grow, and then you get into like the final stage, which I call like the power stage. This is when now they're looking to you, now they're saying, what do you think? Now they're bringing you into the rooms where decisions are being made,
Yeah.
right? They are asking for your opinion. So you're no longer somebody who they just tell, well, this is what's going to happen. You're
Exactly.
somebody who they consult and is there in the room deciding what's going to happen. People trust you.
Mm-hmm.
They trust your leadership. They trust your presence.
Yes.
So
Yeah. I
those
love
are.
how you broke. Love how you break it into zones too, of kind of like
Mhm.
the stages of influence. All right, because it
Yes.
is, and then the external, internal, all has to, you know, match, and it has to make sense, right?
Hmm.
So, packaging. I love packaging. All right, because I feel like when you have a message that's packaged, it's easier for people to remember, and it's easier for people to attach you to that.
Yes.
So, like, and a lot of my audience, hey Leslie, she's on Facebook too. How you doing? Good evening, madam. Um, so when I use the word slay, I mean it in the way that I have structured it,
Mhm.
it stood on its own, right? And when you attach a name or a um,
Slogan.
uh, phrase,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
some sort of framework or whatnot to that, people tend to unconscious. I mean, it's like, oh, wait a minute. I know what she does. I know what she stands for. I know her vision. I know what we need to do. It all makes sense because this is generalized stuff that, do. But this is this is how you become a lot more of an influencer, and then the informal influencer. So when you were speaking about the people that are credentialed, and they got these titles and they've got all the degrees and everything else, what I found was the informal influencers were the ones that people were following, as opposed to the person that was actually in the seat, because
Mhm.
they had these skills.
Mhm.
They understood. Now, for good or bad, okay, because it could go either direction. As the informal leader, and you're always hoping that it's for the good of the overall, they seem to have found a way. to get people to do the things that they don't want to be doing, but they know that it would be helpful. And so, you know, that too has always been an interesting phenomenon for me.
Mm.
Always been.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people all the time, you don't actually have to have a title
Yeah.
to be a leader, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's just because a lot of people think the only way to have influence is to have that title. But sometimes
Right.
I talk to people and I'm like, do you actually even want this?
Yeah.
Right? There's just
Yeah.
a lot more to leadership than just having a title.
Ugh.
Do you really want to um I would have people in leadership positions and say, I don't want to deal with the politics of it. I'm like, that's literally your job. That
That's
is your
literally your
job.
job all day long. That's what you do.
I'm like, that is your job. If you
Yeah.
don't want to deal with politics, you shouldn't be where you are,
No, at all.
right? Uh,
At all.
because it's this thing where a lot of people get promoted to leadership positions without training, without nothing, and then you get there and you wonder why people are struggling. So
Yeah.
you are the best salesman on the floor, and a lot of times it's not. It takes people. Sometimes it takes people out of their gifting. You are the best
Yes.
salesman on the floor, and then
Yes.
obviously the next progression is to become the sales manager, right? But do you
Yeah.
really want to be a manager? Do you really want to manage people, coach
Yeah.
people, become people's therapist,
Yeah. All
and
the things.
deal with all the politics, and
The drama.
so I tell people sometimes a promotion is not always a good thing, right? Sometimes it's not for everyone. Sometimes it takes you out of your gifting. It takes you out of your calling. And a lot of people are in leadership positions and are just miserable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they
Absolutely.
just feel like that's just the
The way.
only way they can get influence. So
Hmm.
back to what you're saying, there's so many ways to have influence. I teach people to map out, to do like power maps and things like that. Like
Yeah.
when you go into a place, and I find personally that the people who talk the most and the loudest don't have nearly as much power as they think they do, right?
Absolutely.
It's the person with the most power, I promise you, nobody even knows. They are like
Yeah.
the quietest people,
Yeah.
the people who no decision is made without consulting them, and it's
Hmm.
not always the people you think,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Um so I teach people to kind of power map and just be observant when you go into a room. There's so much psychology to this. Who are people subconsciously turning to, right?
Yeah.
Who are the people making all those decisions? So yes, even without a formal title, you can have a lot of power. You can
Absolutely.
influence the people who, I call it, influence the influencers, right?
Yeah.
You can influence the influencer,
Yeah.
and have a lot of power that way without necessarily being the title. I know, a lot of people come to me also because they have titles, but they don't have that felt authority, right? No
Yes.
one's following them, and it's like, why I'm having so much trouble, pushback, and in this and that, and nobody, people are not following, people are not, and sometimes people just think it's other things,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
which it might not necessarily be. It just might be the way you translate your work, and you translate that value, and how you make people feel.
Yeah. I like that one the
Yes.
most. How do you
Yeah,
make other people feel?
exactly.
You know?
Do people feel safe,
Yes.
right? Do they feel
Heard.
heard? Do
Yeah.
they feel respected? Um do they feel like what you're doing is gonna benefit them, right? Because
Yeah.
people are thinking, what's in it for me,
That's right.
as well. Are you able to absorb risk?
Yeah.
So those types of things, they are the ones that actually matter. It's not even about your title at
No.
all.
No. And I think you're so spot on when it comes to, authority without the title, and for my world, authority without the rank. It has to become something that is from you, the power within you, to present yourself in such a way where people are going, yeah, like I want to listen more to what they have to say.
Mm.
And when you find yourself getting asked to come in and speak, or for advice, or for mentorship, or for sounding off, then you start to realize that you're doing something right.
Mm.
Like that everything that you're sharing and what you're speaking to is producing good work, good results, outcomes. So image management is not just a vanity thing, and I think
Yeah,
that where a
it's
lot
not.
of people get into style and stuff. I love to dress up. That's just part of what I do.
Yeah, that is just the surface of it,
That's
really.
the surface, right?
Absolute
It's
surface, you know.
and that's like the icing on the cake. That's when you understand what you are doing with the clothes that you're putting on, all right? Because not all of the spaces that you go in requires a certain look,
Mm.
okay? I mean, so I get very specific on, you know, when you're presenting, or when you're having a meeting, or when you're out with other leaders doing socials, and all the other things, because those come with, and I love, that's where I'm going to swing it to, the protocol. Okay, so I absolutely love protocol. I absolutely like time honored protocols, what you had in
Spoken
your.
like someone in the from the military,
Yeah,
right?
right. Like we are protocol. Like
Military protocol is like
yes,
serious. It's
we
no joke.
serious. We get in there. We like, this seat belongs to so and so. We got the name tag on there, and the
Mhm,
person's escorted. Well, there's a lot of things that go into that.
mhm,
But I think that is something too that people, may not have privy to. Maybe they're, getting into a leadership role, and no one has taught them, etiquette, or the way that the unwritten or unspoken rules that there are there. So can you share a little bit about your experience, and what you have found, and give us a little bit of insight to that?
Okay. I would say, like, you're absolutely right. You know, understanding the rules of the environment that you, especially maybe the informal rules of the
Mm-hmm.
environment that you find yourself, is very important because um I remember a while ago when I was I was taught, right, like, you know, when it comes to like diplomatic circles and stuff, you know, like, you know, there's very, you know, strict dining etiquette and all that. And I remember one time my mentor telling me, "Oh no, you are not there to eat. This is a performance," you know, like
Oh.
like I mean, you're there to eat, but it's not so much about the food. It was like, this is an absolute performance, right? People are
Mm.
judging you. People are
Mm-hmm.
looking at the way you hold your fork, and they
Yep.
are making judgments and whatever about you, right? So you have to like know your environment, and you know how formal or how, you know, strict it. I you know, I have been in places where just even like a mere seating chart, right, causes, right, so much. Who is sitting to the left, who is sitting to the right, that's a big thing
Mm-hmm.
in some rooms, right?
It is.
Because who sits to the right is usually more important than who sits to the, you know,
That's
just
right.
taking pictures, right? The lineup, who is in the middle.
Yeah,
I can look at a picture and tell who are the most important people in that picture
exactly.
based on the way they are placed, right?
Yeah.
Or based on the way people are seated, right?
Yeah.
Or based on the receiving line,
Yeah.
um, based on the way people, even something as little as understanding how you introduce, right? Or how you introduce yourself, how you introduce others, right? How, you know, you introduce someone of a senior a more senior rank to someone of a more junior rank, you introduce a woman to a man, just, even things like that, just depending on the environment that you are. But absolutely, if you don't know these things, it it's definitely going to affect you. It's going to reduce your it's going to bring down your confidence and your
Yeah.
self-esteem, right?
Well, and
Because
I also think it brings down your credibility
it
too.
brings, yes, absolutely.
Because you're in a space where people aren't generally saying, "Oh, they're their first time coming in here, so they just don't
Hmm.
know,"
Yeah.
right? So because I share with my clients, I'm like, act like you belong in this room, okay? So you're going in understanding what is happening in the room, and if you don't know, you follow, someone who is,
Observe. Mhm.
you just have to be looking to see who is doing what. You don't just go in there and just start eating, and if you don't know,
I'm gonna do my thing, and
right,
it reminds it reminds me of that scene from Titanic where Jack, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but
I have
there's a scene
several
where
times.
Jack, he starts to look around and
Yeah,
observe, the invisible, like, cues, and of the people around him, and then he starts to
yeah,
copy them in a way, right?
yeah.
To fit more into that environment. And there's a lot of people that are going to be like, oh, you're not being authentic, or you are trying to change yourself, or you are. And I'm like, look, it has nothing to do with that, right? There's a reason
No,
why they say, when in Rome,
yeah, you
um
do like what they doing wrong.
you act like the Romans, right? It absolutely makes such a difference being able to blend in, right? I tell people, right, you don't like this, you don't like that, but you absolutely have no power to change anything. So why don't you try to get some power
Right.
or some influence, that maybe you can change the things that um
Exactly.
you
This is
don't.
all like customs and courtesies of the culture for which you are going into. And it
Absolutely.
reminds me also to, like, I went to Vietnam for 3 months and I was the medic. And so I was out in the jungle, having to treat everybody. And one of the Vietnamese workers that were with us, he got sick. And so they had a camp site on the other side. And so they called for the medic. And so I'm like, oh no, here we go. So, like, I have to go over there,
Mhm.
start an IV because he was that sick. And they said, first you drink Kukaloi. And I was like, what is this? And one of the guys that I was with, because I had a male escort to walk me over there, he had been on one of these missions before, and he said, oh, it's snake's blood. He
Ooh.
says, you got to drink it. You got to
Mm.
drink it. Because that is their tradition, their culture, and the way that they want to know, like, if they could trust you, if you're
Are
going to
you are
be
you
able,
one of us? Yeah.
yeah, like you're going to get ready to, take care of one of our our teammates. We got to know that you're not going to go in there and do something, to cause them harm. And so I drank it, and it was the most disgusting thing that I've ever drinking in my life. But after that, it was like whatever I needed, whatever, you know, um, like supplies, I needed to
Mhm.
get someone in a helicopter and get them
Mhm.
out of the location because they got significantly hurt. It was easy. It was
Mhm.
easy for me to do that because of just the one thing, right? And a lot of times I've heard, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to do that. It's like you are in someone else's country, okay, and you are providing service of whatever kind, or you're trying to get to know. And if it's not going to, and I was saying, because they drink it all the time. So I was just
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, what is it going to do to me? It didn't
Mhm.
do anything. It was just tasted bad. But it all speaks to having this understanding of what is required within the moment for where you're at,
Yeah.
and really taking these into consideration, because the last thing you want is to not get the invitation to come back. I've and again, I don't know what you've experienced, but I have seen that. Like, no, 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 no. We're not we don't want them coming back because last time this and this happened, right? And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah,
You know,
obviously, if you disrespect somebody's, especially if it's like a cultural thing,
yeah,
I have been in situations where someone went to a Middle Eastern country, and they just wanted to, without understand, they felt like there was just so much time wasting. And but that is the culture. People,
that
they
is the
want to
culture.
get to know you. They want to build a relationship with you. They're not going to
Yeah,
do any kind of business with you if they don't build that relationship and do that. And then you are coming with your with your culture, and like, no, no, this, I just want to go straight, and then
you lose all
you
of what
lose
you're trying
this
to
is,
do.
yeah, and it's costly.
It is
It's
costly.
costly not being able to understand, where other, and I think it also, that has to do with a lot of empathy, right? You
Yeah,
don't have to know everything. If you don't know
yeah,
something, you can ask, and you'll be so surprised how much people are willing to help you
yeah,
if you ask humbly. And as long as you show, like, oh, I'm respecting
yeah,
this culture, or I'm respecting this environment, or use some humor,
yeah,
sometimes, and ask, am I doing this right? What do I need to do? Take the time to learn about the environments that you're going into. I
yeah,
always, like, I always tell people, like, I run the scenario. I don't go into anything blind, right?
yeah.
Run the scenario,
Run
whether
it.
it's a meeting, whether it's an environment, whether it's whatever it is.
Yeah.
Always kind of run the scenario back, like, what is this going to look like? What's going to happen in this place? What is going to be expected of me,
Mm-hmm.
in this environment, or in this situation, or in this thing? And really take the time to prepare. I'm always shocked by the amount of people that just don't prepare for things.
Well, because they run into there and think that they know all the things, right? And so, and again, this comes with being humble. This comes with
Mhm.
taking a step back and saying, I don't know what I don't know, right? So, in order for me to step into this room, I may need to do some research. I need to
Absolutely.
do some background of, who's in the room, what are they speaking to, what is the history of the conversation that we're about to have.
Absolutely.
And these it takes a little bit of time. It does, but it brings you so much more, dividends on the back end when you
Absolutely.
can understand and speak intelligently to what is happening in the room. And the information that you bring, again, because when you're in high stakes environments and you're in the pressure cooker, okay, people want to know how you're going to do in that space. All right, how you're going
Mhm.
to operate in that.
Yeah, they're watching.
So they're watching. So I would have a little note card, if here's some top 3 or 4 things that I can speak to when it comes to, okay, we're going to have this conversation. Then I
Yeah.
have some facts. I have some, kind of like, my uh opinion that is backed up,
Hmm.
stuff like that. I don't
Especially when you already know what's going to happen, right?
exactly.
And then,
Exactly.
and this is especially very important for people who are naturally introverted, right? People who
Mm,
are naturally extroverted
yeah.
can sometimes, how do you improvise, right?
Yeah.
They can improvise things, like, I they can improvise things on the spot to a certain extent, right? To a
To a
certain
certain
extent,
extent.
you
Yeah.
you still have to prepare. But if
Yeah.
you are naturally introverted,
Yeah.
you have to run that scenario.
You do.
You have to prepare. And it's sometimes they run, they run into a lot of problems, because it's not like you're not knowledgeable
Yeah.
you're not knowledgeable. I once worked with someone who was on this team, and they had to like give presentations every, they had to give presentations every now and then, and sometimes like the presentations would be a little bit spontaneous, right? And then
Mhm.
she was just having a lot of problems
Yeah.
in that sense. But it wasn't because she wasn't intelligent or she didn't know the material and stuff. So, but the more extroverted colleagues are able to just kind of
I know.
improvise on the spot. So,
Mhm.
I had to work with her to be able to say, okay, you know what, you need to go back and let them know if I'm going to give a presentation, I need to know ahead of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can kind of prepare and,
Yeah.
prepare mentally and also prepare physically,
Yes.
because I think
Agreed.
sometimes too, that's different personalities. Some
Yeah.
personalities tend to handle the impromptu things a little bit more. But if you know that you are a little bit introverted, then, or somewhat along the spectrum of, introversion, then that is very, very important
I agree.
to, rehearse those things. And sometimes I rehearse conversations. I don't know if that's weird, but
Listen, listen. I don't know how many I have done in my time. It's like being in front of the mirror and just talking to myself because you
yeah.
have to see, because everything is being watched. My
Mhm.
expression on my face, the
Mhm.
tone of my voice, the, hand gesture, everything is being
Everything.
monitored. And so, going through, and I love you said run the scenario and like looking at yourself when you're talking it through, it helps. When you go in feeling flustered or, chaotic and you're just all over the place because you just never took the time
To prepare.
to to prepare, and
Mhm.
it's important. That's why I'm like, S is stay ready, be ready, y'all. Okay. Because these things matter if you're in the leadership space, and a lot of people say they are leaders, and I believe that you could just be leading yourself and you're still a leader in
Mm.
your own right. But these are the things that we have to do. These are things that people are looking for us to do. And I don't think that, too many times people are just like, oh, this is just a lot. And I'm like, well, it is a lot.
It is a lot.
It is a lot.
You gotta just have to take it. You have to take it, and when people think about it like that, it's a lot. But
Yeah.
then once you really start, taking it, I believe in breaking things down. You really
Yep.
start breaking it down and just taking one aspect at a time. It now
Yeah.
becomes something natural. It becomes something ingrained in you. But I can understand how when someone learns it, and that's why for me, the first step of my program is really presence, right? Because I
Yeah.
feel like if you don't get the presence right, then you're not going to get the influence part right,
No.
um and so, and some, I like you said, when people think about presence, they just think image, they just think, oh, it's what you're wearing. Or no, there's so much, there's a self mastery part of it, the
That's
eternal, the
it.
energy part of it,
You done
right?
touched one, Doreen. Let's talk about self-mastery.
Yeah,
Okay, let's go.
the
I mean, I know we at the top of the hour, but y'all, we gonna go right on in this because this is important for us to
y-
to talk about.
yeah, it's like the energy part of it, the understanding how to regulate yourself,
Mm,
that's present.
it is
You
presence.
could, I confess, I walked into rooms before where I thought, wow, look, I'm completely intimidated, right?
Yeah,
But if you can regulate yourself enough, it works, right? It's
it
like
works.
presence is like almost 70% self-regulation and understanding yourself and being able to walk into a room with the right energy
Yes,
and the right
energy. Whew.
the right time. It's so important, and people don't understand this. When like you said earlier, when you get in rushed, flustered, in a hurry, you know
Discombobulated. I used to tell people like, you are discombobulated.
it's
You
just
just ain't right.
discombobulated, right?
Just coming up in
It's
here and
over.
just
It's over already because you've made an impression that's going to be hard to come back from.
Yeah.
right? So that there's that presence, there's the relational presence, you know, how you relate to people, how comfortable, how do you make people feel comfortable in your presence, right?
Yeah.
Do you make people feel safe? You know,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of presence. There's people think presence is only about, but then there's also your environment. That's presence too, right? I tell people, you know, you are supposed to be this leader, but you're walking around, you know, there's like 10 million things in your bag. It's sticking out. It's, you know, there's presence. You know, when
Yes,
people go
I
into your office, right? What does it look like? Yeah.
Doreen,
So
I mean, like these are flashbacks. Okay, these are
yeah,
flashbacks of
it's
people that
crazy,
I
you
have
know.
recalled. That
When people come into your environment, you know, what does it look like? What is it telling people about you? So
yeah,
that's presence, you know. That
yeah,
you know, the way you know, like in diplomacy and stuff, you know, even the way you arrange a sitting area, or like a, you know, based on what's going to happen, we think, okay, what do we want to achieve in
yeah,
this place, right? In this
yeah,
room. And that determines how the furniture is arranged, what kind of decor is, even sometimes the lighting is, how high is the roof, right? How high are the ceilings, you know? So it goes, it's so deep, and it goes so far, you
yeah,
know, objects, symbols, those
yes,
things, you know, they contribute to your presence as well.
yeah,
You know, there was that famous ambassador, what's it, Madeleine Albright, who used to
yeah.
wear
Madeline Albright, those brooches.
those brooches
Mhm, mhm.
that communicated without communicating whatever
Exactly.
she was feeling.
Yeah,
So it's just a lot to it. It's not, you know, but immediately people just go to, oh, it's about how I'm dressed, or how I'm packaged, or how I look. So I always tell people, if you don't get that presence part right, it's going to be very hard for you to scale it into influence, and ultimately scale it um into power, you
into
know.
power.
Mhm.
Yeah. Which is what people are always wanting. People that are calling me or texting me, that's what they generally say is, you know, I want to find what it is that will, you know, get me to a point where I don't have to show up in all the places all the time, right?
Mhm.
Because you can't be in 10 places at one time. You just can't. But what you say, how you say it, what you do, it leaves such an impression that the people that are, you know, in within the organization or the team or even in the family, they see it as, well, what's their standard? Okay, so you know, we're
Yeah.
talking about standards of excellence, right? Everybody's
Mhm.
like, oh, I want to have expectations, I want to not only meet them, I want to exceed the expectations. Well, what is the floor?
Mhm.
Okay, because if you don't establish the floor, you can't get to whatever levels that you're trying to seek. So
Absolutely.
those things need to be, and I'm with you, like the presence needs to be something that is, you know, well thought out,
Mhm.
well planned, and you can consistently show up in that, right? You talk about self-regulation, which, you know, we start talking about emotional intelligence, you know, and kind of in that space. And when we see someone struggling with that aspect, you have
Mm.
to ask yourself a lot of questions. Like I start going into question mode immediately. I'm like, okay, what was the start of your day? Okay. What is happening in the background that we don't see, but is affecting your ability to show up and have the calm, okay?
Mm.
Because you're
Calm.
trying to create that calm
Mhm.
sense even
Yeah.
when it is absolutely
Chaotic.
crazy,
Yes,
chaotic
absolutely.
of what's going on. People want to feel a sense of calm. They want to
Absolutely.
feel like, and so if you're the one going off the handle because you know this, that, and this, you have to ask yourself, what are you doing to manage that? You know, for me, I got to run. Okay. If I'm not running or lifting weights or doing something before the start of the day goes off, I might come in a little, I'm going to be off. Okay. So I have to do something to, because I have a lot of energy. I have
Hmm.
to be able to, it, direct
Regulate
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and direct it into something. So
Hmm.
when I go, I'm actually at even kill. Okay.
Hmm.
So I love that aspect. And so when people start asking, because they'll ask me, well, where'd the discipline come from? And how do you manage all that? And it's like, well, you first have to manage self.
Yes,
Manage yourself.
absolutely. Yes.
All right.
Your first leadership is to yourself.
To
If you can't
yourself.
if you can't lead yourself, then you can't lead other people.
Right.
So that self mastery is just, it's really important. And it's sometimes it takes a lot of practice and a lot of intentionality. Sometimes, just like to what you're saying, people naturally, if there is chaos, people will just naturally look to the calmest person
They will.
to become the automatic leader in that situation.
They
So
do.
sometimes I teach people to give a little bit of contrast, right? So if things are, chaotic, then you have to slow down,
Slow
right?
down.
You slow down your movements, you slow down your speech, you just slow it down. That contrast creates, automatic leadership.
Yeah.
It leaves an impression, right?
Yeah.
um Maybe even if technically you're not in a leadership position, but it just leaves this impression of presence, of having a certain kind of presence and leadership that people will just look to. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really, really, really important aspect of it
Yeah.
that I think sometimes people just ignore,
They
because if
do.
the temperature is rising, people just naturally tend to rise with it
They
without
do.
taking a second to think, okay, let's,
It's like the mob effect. It's
yeah.
like flash mob. It's like, they're panicking. They're off the rails. Like I'm now gonna panic and go off the rails too. And what we have to understand is, even though we're in the moment of being in a leadership position, we are influencing others to see themselves in that position. All
Hmm.
right. Now, I know people won't want to go into a position that they have seen you, going here, there, everywhere, and going, that's not what I want to be doing. Like, I can't handle all that. Right.
And,
But
and emotions are contagious, right?
they
So
are.
when you're a leader, you have to understand that your emotions are contagious. If you come into a place with a certain emotion,
Yeah.
before you know it, it's going to affect
Yeah.
every other
Everybody.
person around you,
Yeah.
because people look to you to set the emotional temperature of the
Exactly.
environment. So if you come in already with just a temperature that's already way high, and then you
Yeah.
you wonder why everything's chaotic and frantic, and why everybody's is just crazy.
Well, I believe everybody got a touch of crazy. I was talking to this because I was at a brunch. We had Mardi Gras. That's why I've got this decal stuff on my face. And I just said, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with it. I'm coming in here, right? But we were talking about, how it could get like crazy, crazy, because everybody's got their own things that they're bringing
Yeah.
to the team. We all got our baggage. We all got something that we're carrying into, an organization or team or whatnot. And so you're having to figure out your own things and then other people's, so it can be, extremely complex, and it could be, very daunting when you don't know how to manage yourself. So you have to be able to manage these things um first. And so, like, and it goes into wellness, which, I speak to all 8 dimensions of wellness, because there has been conversations about having like 4 areas of wellness, but I'm like, if you are a leader, you need to understand that there's, the spiritual, the social, the mental, the physical, the intellectual, environmental, financial, these
Emotion.
aspects of wellness all contribute to how you show up,
Mm.
which equals to presence. Okay. So, like, if your finances are off and you're not doing well in that, you're gonna show up with stress. You're gonna show
Mm.
up like something is really affecting your ability to perform And so, that's why it's so important for us to really sit down, do an assessment, figure out where we at,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then maybe say, you know what, I think I need to tweak a little bit of things, So what we have talked through, Doreen, I mean, we've been here for longer than the hour, and I knew we were going to. I remember I told you that at the very beginning of the show before we even
Yeah.
because it's just this conversation is so needed,
It is. It is.
so needed. And the people like ourselves that are out there, you know, helping for others to see how they could use these tools and these skills to become a better leader, a better, even just a better human being overall. I think these things matter in the grand scheme of it because there's a lot of things that are happening in our world as we know. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what do you stand for? How do you have that conviction where you share with others and they absolutely believe everything that you're saying? They're like, yeah, like let's do something about it, let's make some things
Mm-hmm.
happen. So I know we talked through a lot of different pieces to influence and presence. So what haven't we spoke about that you would like to share with the audience before I ask you a last question?
What haven't we spoken about?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, what do you want to share? Like, oh,
We've spoken about a lot. I
mhm.
don't know. I can't.
What is your final thoughts? I'll say that. What are your final
My
thoughts?
final thoughts. One of the things I really try to leave people with, and just really get them to understand, and one of the foremost things is that it doesn't matter where you are at, right? The everything, like I said, starting in the beginning, can be learned. You
Yeah.
can learn to have presence. You can learn to have influence. You can learn to have power. And I was talking with a group of students the other day, and I was saying, what tends to happen is people just think, oh, I'm just gonna opt out, right? And
Mm. Mhm.
opting out means that I'm not playing the I'm not playing the game. But you are playing the game. You're just playing it passively because you are in the game,
You're
right?
in the game. Yeah.
Yeah. You are already in the game. You are already on the stage.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are you going to do with that? Are you just going to be passive and let it happen to you?
Yeah.
Or are you going to take control
Yeah.
and be intentional,
Yeah.
about your life and the direction that you want to let it go? And I tell people all the time, people say, a lot of times people be like, I don't, I just want to be myself, and I
Mhm.
just want to be authentic. There's nothing wrong with being authentic.
No.
I think it's a little overrated personally
Yeah. I
because
agree.
now it's everywhere and everybody's is
Doing whatever
I
they want to do.
yeah, and people just and no, that's not it. Authenticity is just, people think authenticity is being one way across the
All
board, just
spectrums.
being the same everywhere. That's
Mhm.
not true.
Mhm.
You are allowed to modify your behavior or whatever it is to the environment, to the occasion, to the situation at hand. That doesn't make you inauthentic. That just
No.
makes you a strategic person who
Exactly. Because,
who
girl,
understands.
I'm not wearing these decals on my face if I'm going to be invited to a nice gala, okay, and
Exactly.
with important people in the room. It's just like,
And be
you
like,
know,
oh, this is
this is just who
authentically
I am.
me.
This is what I like
Yeah,
to
I
do. So
just
here I am,
no, no,
you
no,
know,
you don't. You can,
yeah.
I believe there's just no one construct of self. There's no one. So that's one of the things I really try to get across to people. There's just, you can be anything you want to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You can get up tomorrow and I don't know, change your name, get a British accent, learn a bunch of like etiquette, and become a
Woo!
duchess. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
um, so there's just no, that does not make you inauthentic. That just becomes your new authentic self, right?
Yeah.
So your
That becomes
authentic
part of your
self
brand.
is yeah, is whatever you decide your authentic self is. So
Yeah,
I think people should just let go of this um idea that somehow they are betraying their authentic self if they have
themselves.
to
Yeah, I hear that all the
conform to
time.
yeah an environment. Sometimes you just got to do what you have to do, at
Yeah,
least until you have enough power to really change things
exactly.
or
That
um
part.
modify things. If
Exactly.
you don't like to wear a suit, but you're in an industry where you have to wear a suit, you wear a suit, right? You find the best suit you can and you wear it and you go in there and you kill it.
You slay
You
it,
know?
okay? In
Yeah.
our world, we slaying it. Now, if you want to modify, there will be opportunities for you to modify because then they start to see how you have to take everything in consideration. It's like you have to build the leadership, okay, brand, if you
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
before you start to look at your outside brand and go, you know what, I want to make a couple of adjustments here. So, there is room and space for that. But I think people will say, well, they're just gonna have to take it. All right. That's
Yeah.
that's not what we're talking about here. All
Yeah.
right.
That's
People
that's
don't just have to
and
take it.
people will say, well, look at Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg.
You got Steve Jobs money.
I know, right?
You got Mark Zuckerberg's money.
Do you have
No,
his
you
reputation?
have his
Have you
reputation,
have you
right?
achieved the things he had? And by the way, even Mark Zuckerberg now wears suits, right? He goes to congressional hearings and he knows he got to put on a suit, right?
He
He's not going to
know,
go there
yes,
in
because
a
I just saw him
hoodie.
the other day on TV. He had a suit on, so yeah.
Tell me about it.
But right now
Tech,
he under a scrutiny, so he putting on the suit.
thank you. I mean, tech bros in Silicon Valley right now are all learning business etiquette. They're teaching their suits and stuff. So the point is just I think people just need to sometimes, we all need to get over ourselves sometimes
Mhm.
and just be intentional,
Yeah.
about what we're doing. And I was speaking to a class the other day, and I was like, so what's really sad about it most of the time is the people who are really empathetic and who feel like they have all the right morals and things, they just opt out. And then
Mm.
all that's left are the other people, the
The other
unscrupulous
people who
people.
I call, Doreen, the confident mediocrity. Okay,
Yes.
they
And
have the audacity and the boldness to do, what they believe is leadership, but it
mhm,
is at best mediocre. Okay.
absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
that's where the others are kind of on the sideline because they're like, yeah, it's just too much. I
Yes.
really can't
Yes.
do this.
Yeah.
It's just too much work. It's just too much effort and so forth. And that is what is changing the trajectory of these workplaces
Yes.
because the
Absolutely.
people that need to be in the seats aren't in the seats.
Because they've opted out because they somehow feel like, oh, I'm betraying some kind of
Mm-mm.
moral, I don't know how to put it, moral
Uh,
I don't know the words, but really you're just protecting your ego. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, your ego that feels like it's too much for you to try and do the things you need to do and make the adjustments you need to make and learn the things you need to learn. It's just really ego a lot of times disguised as some kind of moral compass that they don't want to betray. Now, I'm not saying anybody should go out there and do things that are morally
Yeah. And unethical or,
unethical,
yeah.
or against their moral values.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that can be done, and it can be done empathetically, it can be done ethically.
Mhm.
And so, I just encourage people to just get in there and, and do what needs to be done and play the game to stay to be stay
Yeah.
and win,
And
win.
win.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just don't say get there and get in their arena
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
take all the beatings. Okay. We
Yeah.
want you to go in there. And yes, it is challenging. Yes, you're going to have hard days and hard moments, but the reward is that you still showed up and you were doing the best that you could do within the circumstances that you have. And at the end of the day, you could say you made something of your name. Your name means more in ever because you decided that you were going to use some of these innate skills. Okay, some of these skills that are already built into you, we're just drawing them out. All we're doing is
Absolutely.
sharing with you, hey, you have it already. We're just going to bring them out just a little bit so that way you can continue to do the work that's needed. Because I feel like this world there's been, you said opted out, like stepped down from, I don't want to do all that. Okay. It's a
Absolutely.
high visible role. I don't want nobody talking bad and always, looking to see what I'm doing, da 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 da. And I'm like, well, your experience, your expertise, your skills are now becoming irrelevant. Okay. Because you
Absolutely.
decided to.
I tell people it's your responsibility to make sure that your work has value, right?
Absolutely.
It's your responsibility to make sure that's not on anybody else. You
No.
have to make sure that your work has value, your name has value, and you are able to achieve the things you need to achieve. And that takes, that takes work, that takes energy, that takes focus, that takes intentionality,
Mm,
self-development, wanting to develop yourself, to
mm,
constantly evolve and change and learn and grow. So
exactly.
that's what I try to tell people all the time. Give yourself the permission to
Yes.
grow, to grow,
Yes.
to be the best version of yourself, instead of
Yes.
limiting yourself to this one version that's not even helping you,
Not even helping you
you
N-
know.
at all. And I feel like people, when they lose sight of that, that's when they become unfulfilled. This is when they don't have a purpose.
Mm,
They're not in their calling because they decided that, oh, this is too much. I can't do that. I know deep down inside, a lot of people want to be able to do it, but then they look at all the cons. They look at the negative as opposed to the positive of how you can lead. And I love when you were on your bio also, you talk about modern leadership, right? It's different from the way it used to be
mhm,
20, 30
mhm.
years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. It was very monolith. It was very like you have like a one-way street down to leadership. It's like this path, right? When
Mhm,
the world started opening up with all the digital and social media, right? It like 10 times fold, okay? Of people like now taking a look inside of who you are, where you go, who you hanging out with. Companies decide whether or not you're going to hire you based on what you got on your social media. And you
absolutely.
may not like this or not, but that is just what reality is. That's just the way
Absolutely.
it is. I'm not
Yeah.
going to hire somebody who's on a corner somewhere and, doing things that are not in alignment with my company's brand,
Or
their
saying
mission.
things,
Yeah, that's not going to happen. So, now modern leadership is like this. It's all the things that can come in to how you maneuver and navigate into what we see, and we have learned a lot more about leadership than we did 20, 30 years ago when you talk about people and how they tick and what makes them really shine in their strengths. we
Mm,
we we have done this type of work where now it it is, you have to stay relevant. You have to stay with the times of what's going on.
yeah.
So when people tell me like, I don't want to be on social media, I don't have it, I don't have this or I don't have that. Okay, I'm not saying you got to be on social media, but I know people are looking. Okay, your people that you are leading, they are looking to see what kind of social media influence you have. And for me, I'm like, we need to set up something that gives them a picture or an idea. You
Yeah.
have thoughts, you have thought leadership, you
Yeah.
have things that you can share to improve and to elevate someone else's brand. Okay,
I
so
say the era of silent visibility is
oh,
over.
it's over.
It's over.
It's over.
There's no such thing as being silent. Sorry, the era of silent credibility. I meant credibility is
Credibility,
over.
yeah,
So,
it's over.
um, no matter how. how intelligent, smart, credible you think you are, you can't just stay silent. You know, you have
You
to build a
cannot.
brand. That is it.
I have ran into people who have said, well, they have this such a hard resistance to, you know, oh, I'm not going on. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be able to be like, you're leading young people. You know what young people do all day? Okay. Whether or not you think about it, they on their phones. They're on their laptops. They're on
Mm-hmm.
the computers. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking for someone to follow. If it's not you, they're going to be looking somewhere else.
Someone else, yeah.
All right. Why not it be you? Why can't you just put, information out there that they can see, they can get an idea who you are, how because they need direction. We're not giving enough of these young people direction. This
Absolutely.
is why we got all kinds of things that are happening in the world. I can go on and on and on and on, but all the way from the language, how they are navigating in the workplace with what they show up in, right?
Let me give you this little. I saw it on social media. Someone was talking about a Gen Z, one of the Gen Zs in his office quit and sent him an email saying it's given shackled.
It's giving
And that's
shadows.
it's given shackled, and that's how he quit his job.
Oh Lord.
I thought, oh my god, this is the most hilarious thing.
And some of the older folks are like, what are they saying? What are they talking about? You know what I'm saying? It's just like you gotta connect, you've got to bridge that gap.
Mhm.
How do you bridge the gap between where you're at and where they're at? You have to have something, you know. So I'm not saying, have all the platforms, but it's like people just become like so into themselves, like, oh no, like I don't want these kids find. I was like, I'm opening all my sister's social media. You want to find out more about what I'm doing? Because I am trying to change the way, reshape the culture for where we are at right now. And I'm doing
Mhm.
my little part. Like in the community of trying to help as best as I can with how this tool that we're talking about, which is image management, presence, influence, how these things can help. Because at the end of the day, they want to become, or want to change their situation for
Mhm.
wherever they're at.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
And they want to get into a great job. They want to get
Mhm.
into a place that they feel valued, that they feel
Mhm.
heard or whatever. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of work yet to be done. Queen, we're
Absolutely.
we're doing the work that we are doing. Okay.
I think about, like, my grand vision is, to create, a more empathetic, refined world, one leader at a time,
One
maybe
leader at a
maybe if I
time.
could I could do that. There's too much, shenanigans going on. It's
Shenanigans, buffoonery. Okay, that's what I call it.
so,
Okay. Queen, okay, so we will be closing this up. And look, I appreciate you being here on the show and taking your time to really talk to what we have shared in the conversation. And our audience members are still hanging tight. I thank you all so much for being here live with us still. And that's saying a lot for like an hour and a half show.
yeah.
You're still here. So I'm going to ask you the last final question, and then we'll, close out and sign off for tonight. So I'm a very deep thought person. Like every day, I think about, you know, what I am doing. Okay, like what do I truly want for people to say about me? So I'm being very intentional about the decisions that I'm making in the places that I go and, all those things, right? And one of the things that I think about is my 80th birthday.
Mm.
All right. Like my aunt had her 80th birthday party a few years ago. And everything that they were sharing there was like, they were nailing it. I was like, man, they really know. So they were giving her flowers and all the things. And so I'm thinking, like, what would my family and friends say about me at my 80th birthday? If God gave me that many years, you know, what would they say about me? And am I being intentional about what I want them to say? All right. So I'm going to pose that question to you. This question is for every person that is on this show. So what would you want your family and friends to say about you if God gives you 80 years?
Hmm. That is a that's a very good question. Sometimes you have to look at things from the end
Yeah.
to construct it,
Yes.
back to the
Yep.
beginning.
Yep.
And I hope that on my 80th birthday, God willing, that they would say I was someone who used the gifts and the talents that God gave me
Mm,
to impact people,
mm,
and make the world a better place. I always think transformation, right? So at the
yes.
core of it, I think at the core of it, I want to develop human potential, right?
Mm,
So I hope that on my 80th birthday, there would be all these people who can say that because they met me, their potential in life um, went up. They were able
yeah.
to develop their potential and become the best version of themselves. I mean, including my family and including my friends, and they were just really able to live up to their potential and
Yeah.
be the best they can be. It's just the way sometimes, I would look at the person and be like, wow, I think this person could do so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this person could be, in so much better position if they just, did this or did that. So I hope that would be my legacy, that I developed human potential and I
Yeah.
help people really become the best version of themselves.
Mm. I love that answer. I absolutely love that answer. Because it's a shame when you hear all the time that the best ideas, the best gifts, the best um, way to give back to humanity are those that have long gone and never fulfilled their dream, never fulfilled their vision. So, I love that you said, that using your gifts, your talents, to impact, to create a bigger impact on humanity, because you're talking about human potential. So I know you're doing the work, Queen, okay, just by the conversation that we had. And y'all, this has been absolutely okay, a slay amazing conversation. So you want to be able to share this out with your friends, your community, because you heard it first here on some of these gems that were dropped that you may not have heard before. Okay, you heard it first time here. So I do want to thank our guests that came here live, because without you, we would not have as much of a robust conversation as we would like. So Melanie Richards and Victoria White on LinkedIn side, thank you so much for being with us live. And then on the Facebook side, we had Glenn Roy, Emily Hunt Brown, Leslie George. Thank you so much for being on the Facebook as well. And you listen, y'all. We got another guest coming up next Friday, okay? Because this thing just keeping it rolling here. So come back next Sunday, because I got two shows, y'all. Sometimes I get these two kind of mixed up here. So this show next Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a Slay to Success talk show. Come back, we'll have another Slay Amazing guest. If you are interested in getting to know more about what we just talked about, then you can come to the Rise and Slay morning show on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I talk through a lot more of this to give you a little bit more inspiration and give you some things to think about. Because I think, these are the times to do that. So, okay, Doreen, thank you so much for being here live with me tonight. And y'all, please take care of yourself. Stay warm. All right. stay safe out on these streets.
I know, I know.
It's just a mess, you know?
I hope we get out of this soon. Like this crazy weather.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, come on, I want warm weather, 70 degrees, regularly. That's my ideal day of just, this right here, what we got going on is not. So, uh,
It's not it.
this is not it. Okay, y'all. So keep on slaying until you can't slay no more. And I will see you all very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This is amazing conversation. Absolutely amazing.
Bye.